Thanks. I guess I'll start with my background, and then Nick, maybe I'll throw up a little bit about the brand too, just so I can set the stage of kind of the challenge that we were up against. So Justin Gardner, my background has always been healthcare. So 20 years in healthcare, even more specifically, kind of in the regenerative medicine wound care space, always on the commercialization side, so marketing side of that business. Previous to Active Skin Repair and BLDG Active, I owned a healthcare agency. So we would help startup biotech medical device companies launch products into the hospital professional space. And that's actually where I came about the technology behind Active Skin Repair, which I'll get into. We helped launch that product into the professional hospital space. I started to really understand the science behind the product. And when I did that, I understood how it could apply to my everyday life. And I'm an avid surfer, traveler, and outdoorsman. And so I started to use the product in those spaces. So very much then decided, okay, I sold my healthcare agency. What did I want to do next? I was able to go back to the medical supplier that I helped launch the product into the hospital with and get the license to bring it over the counter. And that was the start to BLDG Active. We launched in 2017, really launched product in 2018. We were self-funded, so funded by myself and some of my other partners. So the story I will tell you and kind of the approach that we had to go after was very much a bootstrapped approach. How we were financing was, we had capital, but certainly not a lot. So we weren't going out with television ads. So real quick, let me see if I can do this. And can everybody see? Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about the brand. As I do this, this is the exact deck that we educate every influencer on. So when we start to talk to influencers, and I'll go through kind of some of that initial outreach and communication, we have a coordinator who handles that. And then the next goal would be to get them onto a call. We actually now have an agency who's helping us as well. But the next step would be after they get the initial show interest, we get them on a Zoom call, and I walk them through real quickly what Active Skin Repair is. So the first place I start is for skin repair. This is a dusty category. It's not skincare, it's skin repair, and it's really first aid. And we are trying to create the category of skin repair. So we didn't want to get niched into kind of the last resort only for cuts and scrapes, but really something that could be applied to everyday use on all the repair issues that you have for skin needs. And that posed a host of challenges, which I'll get into from a marketing side, both creating a new category and creating and launching a technology within the consumer space. But if we looked at the old kind of technologies, just to kind of give you what we're up against, it's synthetic antibiotics. So Neosporin is what we know, Johnson & Johnson. That was invented over 50 years ago, uses synthetic antibiotics, petroleum-based, so it's bad for the environment. Over 20% or over 10% have allergic reactions to it. It goes up to about 20%. So not a great product, but it's kind of the tried and true for cuts and scrapes. Most parents use that. Then you have bulky and toxic antibacterial products, the betadines, the alcohols. They kill bacteria, but they're also really harsh chemicals. And then you have things like lotions and balms. They can do a good job from a moisturization side, but they also don't really have that repair function and lack any kind of clinical evidence. The product that I'm talking about today is it's the same technology, again, that I launched into the hospital. It uses a molecule called hyperchloris, and that's the same molecule that your body produces, your white blood cells produce. So if you get cut, scraped, any type of skin damage, your body's immune response is to send white blood cells to that injury. Inside those white blood cells is the molecule hyperchlorous, and that's what's in our bottle. So it's everything kind of your body's producing to do three things. It kills 99.9% of bacteria, including MRSA, staph, so really complex bacteria. It also kills viruses, including COVID and fungi. It helps reduce skin inflammation as well, and helps, unlike alcohol and peroxide that kill bacteria, this actually can help the healing process as well. So it kills the bacteria and speeds up healing. So when we have kind of gone through the evolution of the company and really trying to synthesize our value proposition and our messaging, we came up with the Y Active. And the Y Active was that it's natural and non-toxic. So we're using the same molecule that your white blood cells produce. We do that through electrolyzing salt and water. So really simple ingredients to mimic the molecular structure. It's completely non-toxic, and we're able to get it into a pH balance. It's neutral, no synthetic antibiotics, no harsh chemicals. And so that's the first one of Y Active. It's natural. And that's very much how we're also educating our influencers as one of the key points we want them to speak to. Simplicity. So you get all of this kind of multifunctional, we call it the WD-40 of skin repair. This all-in-one solution works on absolutely everything from cuts and scrapes to sunburns and insect bites, which are also just inflammation issues. Doesn't sting because it's non-toxic, and because it's innate to your immune system, you can use it on any body part. So it's safe to use around your eyes, ears, mouth, sensitive areas. And the last part is it's clinically proven. So this same hospital grade, FDA approved or cleared formulation, robust clinical evidence behind it. And so that's where I'll stop, and then I'll also show you how that's in a few minutes, how we've been able to relay that information and allow influencers to kind of digest that and put it into their own authentic voice. But our challenge was, you've got this great product. What I learned from before we even launched the product is when we got the product into people's hands, they just became evangelical about it. They love the product. It works amazingly well. But first aid's an amazingly dusty category. Nobody is searching online for what's a great first aid product, right? That's just not something that we're out there thinking about, want to think about. Generally, if you're buying a skin repair first aid product, it is, I've done something to myself and I'm going to Rite Aid or Walgreens. If you go in Rite Aid or Walgreens, you're going into, it's the first aid shelves in the back of the store. It is, it's generally dominated by Johnson & Johnson, or just really like generic, low cost alcohol peroxide thing. So, you can buy a gallon jug of peroxide for a few bucks. So we knew if we put it on that shelf in the back of that pharmacy, our 3-ounce spray is $25. Our 3-ounce gel is $30. So we knew if we put it there, it wasn't going to pull. Also, you've got a major trust thing. Something's just gone wrong with your body. You might have, even if it's just a bad sunburn, you want something that is going to work and you're putting it in an open wound if it's a cut or a scrape. So as a new brand, new company with no recognition against a tried and true Johnson & Johnson billion-dollar company that has Neosporin that we've all grown up with, that's a tough one too. We're 3 times the price point. And so we lack that trust credibility. So we immediately said, that's not gonna work. We just knew we didn't have the capital to create that education. We knew it wouldn't pull off the shelves. So we had to figure out another way. We knew for us at that point, this was not a DTC brand that, again, it just running Facebook ads for a first aid product seemed like it was a quick way to failure too. So we decided that we would take kind of a playbook from Sunbum and go into specialty retail. And we figured within specialty retail, you've got the active outdoor community, people who have a high propensity to skin damage, but also have a more likelihood to buy and pay a premium price for a natural product as well. They were already primed and educated on sunscreens to do that. So we thought, let's go into surf shops, bike stores, outdoor, the REIs of the world. And not only can we get it, but hopefully not put it in the back of the store, but put it up in a POP display up front. In doing that too, we decided to price the product in a way that there were solid margins behind it. And I'll get into why that was that was important for specialty, but it was even became more important as we moved into affiliate marketing and influencer marketing as well, to have those margins. But we wanted to be able to show a high margin product for these specialty retail stores. So it was low footprint, you can put it in your front, and it's a high margin product, just put it next to the sunscreens. We had spent a couple years really plugging away at that specialty channel. The other problem that we have too is the stability of the molecule doesn't allow for sample sizes, so we can't do samples. So that was also a problem too. You can't really do a trial thing. You have to just convince people to buy it. And so what we were doing in that is we were giving a couple bottles free to the employees, educating them on it, and hopefully getting them excited to then educate their customers that they come in. Oh, you're going on a surf trip. This is amazing if you get cut on reef. Oh, you're doing a bike. This is great for rashes and chafing. So that had worked. It was a slow grind though. The revenue was, we were building a great brand. We were building a cool brand. We were getting that kind of evangelicalness, but the revenue and kind of the long-term wasn't, it was just going to take a long time. And then we started to, even before COVID, notice that, okay, athletes were great, but it was really the moms buying the product. And those were the woman consumer. And we now call her the Whole Foods mom, the woman between, let's say, about 25 to 40 years old, 45 years old, places a lot of value on what they're putting on themselves and their children, values non-toxic natural products, also values the brand ethos that we embody, the 1% for the planet, those things they're willing to pay extra for. That was our consumer. And that consumer might be going to a surf shop, but we started to really play around with, okay, well, how do we create a word of mouth marketing campaign to that woman, to that consumer? And that's when we really started to look at Instagram as a channel to do that. And we had a coordinator at the time, and we just went through and found natural product mom bloggers, and we personalized email outreach and said, hey, we think this product's a great product that your base would be interested in. We were generally targeting people with followers from 5,000 to 500,000. We weren't going after the $1 million or the 1 million follower plus with agents. We were trying to go directly to the more micro influencer that we felt like we could engage fairly quickly. And we would just the coordinator would start a dialogue through email. And from there, we would then get them on that Zoom call, get them on a phone call. And I would talk about my story about how I launched the product into the hospital space. And that's how I discovered it, how I would take it on surf trips. So they felt connected to the CEO and founder. They felt part of that story. And then I would tell them about the clinical evidence behind the product. I get into the science of it. And then I tell them, please don't do that to your customer. They don't, the science is too complex. So if you can digest this down, if you can take this information and show it in real world, authentic ways that you're using it on yourself and on your family, then that I think is going to connect the best. And so those calls. On top of that, so that's kind of really where we started, and then we were trying to figure out a compensation model for these influencers. Some would just do it, you know, we were getting some that just said, this is an amazing product, I love it, and they just post. Some that would say, you know, I want X amount of dollars. And then we started to look into the affiliate side and said, well, is there a way that we can put a performance to this? And so we signed up for a software program called Reversion. And we would do it in we definitely did not want to come off like a multi-level marketing, look at how much money you can make by talking about our product. So it was positioned in a very subtle way that we would say, listen, as a thank you for posting. And we went back to the people who were just posting for free for us too, and said, we've adopted this program. And for doing this, when you sign up through Reversion and you hook it to your swipe up, we're going to be able to track all of the sales that come from your post. And on that, we're going to give you 30% of those sales. And so when we adopted that affiliate model, that's when, and we had just started to apply that right when COVID started. And it went, to give you some numbers, from 2019 to 2020, our brand grew 300% in sales revenue. So we more than tripled our sales revenue. And that we went from about 5% of our revenue coming from website sales. So at that point, we were about 70% Amazon, about 25% retail, and about 5% website. Closing this month, which was our second biggest month ever, it was about 70% website sales now through the influencer and affiliate program. And that's become a multi-million-dollar channel for us. So we built really from nothing within probably about a year and a half to something that's turned quite substantial. The other thing to that is when we move from, okay, because so much, if we were doing anything from an earned or paid side, so many of the sales were getting funneled or we're just going over into Amazon, because I'm like, okay, well, I can buy it on Amazon, I can buy it on your website, I'm just going to buy it on Amazon, right? Part of the affiliate program, we'd also give them discount codes. So again, coming back to margins, eventually we got back into Keystone margins, right? So we're selling it for full price on our website, we're capturing all of that, but we're doing 30% affiliate, 20% discount. By doing that discount and that affiliate with that swipe up, that was compelling enough to keep them out of Amazon into our website. By doing that, we are acquiring massive amounts of customer data. So now we've got all of that customer data where we can be doing remarketing or all of our email marketing campaigns too as well. And that's where social finally started to make sense to us, our social ads as well, because what we find is top of funnel marketing within Facebook and stuff is really challenging for us. It's really, again, tough to throw a first aid product into somebody who doesn't know what it is and get them so excited to click in a Facebook ad. It just, our return on ad spend's been incredibly poor. When we do it as a retargeting, it's amazingly efficient. We're doing very positive return on ad spend in mid-funnel retargeting campaigns. So if that influencer educates them, they get them to the website, they don't make that decision to buy, then we recapture that a lot of times down the line. It's going to take like good old marketing 4 or 5 times when they see it and they go, oh my God, now I have a problem, let me try it. Right? So that captures there. The affiliate stuff has been amazing because it allows us a performance-based metric. And some of these affiliates, to give you an example, and I do have some examples if people want to see them of what some of these posts look like from the natural bloggers. We have one woman called Just Dot Ingredients. She posts about her children on vacation getting sunburns, and the next day will sell 10,000 units. It's just a mind-blowingly quick conversion. And then you don't even capture all the spillover from that, from Amazon, that does still go to Amazon, because I don't care about saving $3. I'm still going to just be lazy and buy off Amazon Prime, or the retargeting that then's captured down the line. So it's been an amazing way from a being very cash conscious to get the marketing messages out there, to incentivize and pay a good amount to these influencers without having to put a lot of risk up front to it. So that was a lot of talking. Maybe I'll stop there.
You know, Justin, one thing that has struck me every time I've seen your deck is the way you handled your competitors was really brilliant. Neosporin, 50 years old and has petroleum base. Does anybody want to put petroleum on their body? I mean, the way that you handle that, I think actually was one of the fundamental reasons you were able to communicate so clearly with these influencers. I mean, you just had one or two sentences for your landscape there, and it's a brilliant job.
Yeah, and what's amazing too, thanks for that, Bob. And what's amazing too is if we run an ad saying replace Neosporin with our product, people are going to be skeptical. Of course, it's an ad, right? Like, and who are you? When a natural product influencer, when we can educate them on why this is a terrible product and that should be replaced in medicine cabinets, and they come on and they say they do it, this is something, they have 500,000 people who trust them. It goes like that. So it works so much better when it's done from a third party with credibility than from a paid ad. And again, kind of to the envelope, that's a compelling, it's an archaic product that should be replaced. It's something that everybody has and should replace that product. But it's the most efficient way we've been able to, or compelling way we've been able to communicate that, is through third-party influencers who have that credibility.
And a couple questions are coming in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself and jump in if you'd like. But Philip asked, are you he asked about a discount to the consumer, which I think you covered. And then are you managing any channel conflict while carrying out this program?
Yeah, specifically in regards to, I know you had to do some pivot away from retail shelf space, going more direct to consumer during the pandemic. But as those retailers come back online and people are shopping indoors more and more and more, especially in the specialty channels, are you having to manage any channel conflict with your retailers that are investing in your inventory? And how does that work?
It's a good question. As of 2 weeks ago, we've made a decision to completely stop retail. We'll stay with retailers that have our product. We become a pure DTC brand. Without getting into the numbers, is just if you looked at it, it just makes more sense for us to focus online at this point. We run up to a bunch of problems recently past COVID that's kind of a little outside the influencer thing, where distributors are saying we're selling to Amazon third-party sellers and we don't care. And that was the decision that they were eating away our Amazon business. And we just had to make the decision to say that 90+% of our revenues in online. So why are we spending so much time and energy trying to combat what is continually a problem on the distribution side?
Yeah, congratulations. It's a great story.
And Melissa asks, if an influencer posts and the consumer's last touch is in another channel, is the influencer receiving any credit?
So to understand that, so if they swipe up and they buy from our website, that influencer will get credit, even if they're pixeled. So even if they come back, if they don't buy right that second and they come back, there's a time period that they are through reversion. And I am the most untechnical person. So, but they are credited for that up to 30 days. So I do know they are. If they go to Amazon though, they are not. So there's no way to capture them buying from Amazon. And really you can only, I mean, or if they go to Target, we're on Target, we're on some other third-party websites as well. There'd be no way to credit them to that. So just only purchases through our website. And each influencer also gets a unique discount code. So there's also ways that we're tracking not only through the reversion swipe up, but also through the discount code. So, and chances are if they are buying through our website, because of that influencer, they're going to be using that discount code.
Okay. Yeah, this is something that is challenging for me at Prana, just because we have so many different digital marketing channels. So if I see product to an influencer, and then they post it, they can pull, we use Commission Junction as our affiliate network, so they can pull the tracking. And then obviously they can drive traffic and sales. But if another affiliate, we're on like the big affiliates like Rakuten, Retail Me Not, Coupon Cabin, all of those different ones. So if the consumer at the end of the day wants to go get their cash back at Rakuten, that's going to null that influencer's tracking. So I know there's a lot of conversation about like multi-touch influencer payouts and things like that, and different networks can do that. It's kind of like a dicey area with influencers. So that's something I was just kind of curious about, if that's not going to have that direct sale, or say they come in through Facebook. That's something that I'm trying to figure out with the influencer, because they're not always going to get the direct referral.
Yeah, it's and I think when you're dealing with bigger brands like Prana, it's going to be substantially more challenging. I think for I think our influencers that we're working with now are pleasantly surprised when we, at the end of the month, when we say, hey, we've got $5,000 we're transferring over to you right now. And it's one of those, I think it's an expectation setting thing a little bit. Like, we don't want them doing this because, we want them really feeling good about our product, feel like they're adding value to their customers, that this is something very unique, that this gives them value in what they're educating their customers about. And so it's a little bit expectation setting, and it's a little bit about brand life cycle and how big your brand is and where it is. And again, to come back to the retail thing, we've just made a real decision until we get to, those 8-figure numbers revenue wise that are more substantial. Simplicity is key, and really staying just in a few spots, controlling brand, and understanding where our sales are coming from and how they're coming have been kind of a decision we've made in that, while we're still in, I would consider, a very early stage of our company. So very different, I would say, in a more established, larger brand that will pose probably some of those, but I would say maybe a little bit on expectation setting. Another thing that it reminded me too is that we've made a real decision when we've done lifestyle stuff for our brand. It doesn't perform incredibly well. So we're generally focusing on people who are more inclined to be talking about products, natural products, specifically mom bloggers who they're not posting pictures of them in swimsuits on the beach. They're posting products, post about great products that they learned about and stuff like that. So they're out there trying to find these products too, right? It's kind of a win-win for both of us, as opposed to getting somebody who has 5 million followers because of, people following because of their lifestyle. Our influencers are much more product focused.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, and what you said about Rite Aid and Walgreens is very much spot on. I know when you're going through the accelerator program, I was always thinking that seemed to be the natural fit, but everything that you mentioned of, the price difference and the more established brand and going on an open wound makes a lot of sense. But have you ever had experience reaching outside of the influencer group, the mom influencers that have worked really well, and maybe learned anything in that of maybe a bigger influencer that wasn't as impactful or anything like that?
Yeah, well, and I'll address it from a couple ways, because we started with BLDG Active outdoor sports. We actually, as part of the start of the company, we did some initial influences. So we did world champion mountain biker Brian Lopes. We did Damian Hobgood, a professional surfer, Taylor Steele. So we were really trying to get into that surf community, that bike community, the active outdoor life community, which I think have been absolutely essential to building us as a cool brand. Now we're in a kind of a deeper one where we're more focused on return on ad, return on investment, and that's more the mom. But what we didn't want to do is create another Neosporin very generic mom brand. We wanted to create something where it felt cool, that dads would want to carry it around, that kids would think this is a cool product, and so. It's kind of gone through this life cycle. The beginning life cycle was very much these more professional athletes side of things, and getting them to post. And we definitely saw sales when Jerry Lopez would post about our product. We would see a lot, and he would just post because he loved the product. But we would see sales from that. But it is nothing like the natural mom bloggers. We have tried some things through agents that have 3 million followers with lifestyle stuff. They won't do affiliate too. They'll tell us right up front, it's X amount of $1,000 to post. We have not seen a return on spend there. So we've kind of shied away from that. The last one, and I'm interested to hear Roger's take on everything from Hook It, is we signed up for Hook It at the very beginning, not from, I think, their core business of the influencer value, but the amateur. We were sponsoring amateur athletes through Hook It. And I think we have 1,000 amateur athletes sponsored through Hook It. Most of these kids have like 500, 1,000 followers. So this isn't something that's gonna move the needle, but man, it's cool just from a post feed side to see all these little kids, and they feel like they're sponsored. They feel like they're part of the company, and we go to these shows and they tell us how they're sponsored by us. And so I do think there's a ton of value from that that kind of grassroots side that just builds up. And so we had used Hook It on that, and we'd also use other platforms like Heartbeat. And so somewhere you can, if you're not familiar with Heartbeat, it's a very female focused. Coley's another one. So if you're familiar with Coley or Heartbeat, but you put a budget in of, let's say, $2,000, you get 25 different people to post about your product. And we're actually about at a break even on the last 2,000 we spent there. It's about break even from a return, but it produces a ton of really valuable content for us of moms posting in organic ways that we then repurpose through our social channels as well.
Fantastic. Hey, Justin, just one comment. There aren't too many small brands on this call, but the whole idea that being able to go in a new world approach, not having legacy retail, really has some financial implications that we often overlook. In selling to retail, of course, you have 90-day terms. You have usually a couple month lead time, and you're just out of pocket for almost a half a year with no return. In this B2C model, you've been able to basically work a small amount of capital really hard, and you're constantly rotating your capital through your business. It's much more successful that way.
That's immediate. I mean, when somebody buys off the website, it goes into the bank account, right? So it's immediate right there, and then it allows us to just reinvest and deploy it right away too. So you're not waiting 6 months to reinvest the money too. You're able to deploy it in a very strategic manner very quickly, and it's just very data driven too. So you're able to really quickly reinvest that capital when you're not sitting on a bunch of capital. So yeah, from a bootstrappy entrepreneur side, it's brilliant.
Yeah, agreed.
I was going to say, Justin, it's been really interesting to sort of hear the balance that you guys have to strike, that it's similar with what we were sort of talking about and saying there's this balance that you have to have for, straight sort of performance marketing versus the longer game of kind of building that brand and then sort of being able to kind of ladder up from, year over year growth. And I think we've sort of dabbled a little bit. I think our business is a little bit different because we have a plethora of brands, and we're really more about, our addressable audience is different. First of all, I mean, you can only be a customer once you become a member, and there's criteria you have to kind of beat. So the influencer thing, we dabbled a little bit, to be fair. We probably haven't done it to the extent that you have, but it's really interesting to hear that, like, the higher level, right, the grassroots are sort of more impactful for you. we're sort of trying to take that internally and sort of become a little bit, sort of leverage our blogs and, those kinds of things to sort of become the expert for our culture. And I saw you have sort of coming soon blog. Are you going to try to parlay any of your sort of influencer kind of success that you've had to sort of become, kind of come back into, how does that channel through your own blog, or do you feel like you can kind of like onboard that internally and sort of leverage some of that same success, or how do is that sort of just sort of a different makeup for you guys?
Yeah, we're still very lean from a staffing side. So it's been one of those things that we would love to invest more in. And right now our new one is podcasting, because we see so many parallels to what's been successful in influencer in podcasting, because I do that same presentation I give to every host that we sponsor a podcast with right now. So I get them excited. They speak like an influencer speaks before their show about how they use the product. We've been doing a lot of like the Dr. Mom podcast and stuff like that. And so we've been more focused over on that end than we have than internally. It's tough. I don't know how many people are really going to come to a first aid website and read our blog. I'm realistic of that. I think there's probably some really nice search engine stuff that would be applied there. But yeah, the new one that we've really kind of been honing in on and how to scale this thing is on podcasting.
That's interesting. We've done some podcasting too, and we sort of found like, the consumption is much different on podcasting. Again, it's sort of like a longer game. So if you're looking for that immediate, 30-day window direct return, podcasting is really a different animal. But it'd be interesting. Have you sort of gotten that return quickly, or I don't know how long you've been doing podcasting, but how do you feel about that channel? Because it sort of seems like it's a longer game for that too, just based on consumption.
Talk to me in a month. We're doing the biggest month we've ever done, a really big investment right now in podcasting. On the little ones though, that we haven't led up to this, the answer is yes. We see it almost with these small podcasts that have really loyal followers, and it also comes with, so I'll use the Dr. Mom one as an example. We did a sponsor with them. They also interviewed one of our pediatricians on their podcast, and then they post on their social as well. So they're doing, we had a guest on the show. We did they do in-feed post for us and an email marketing one. And we've already seen, we did the full season sponsorship, which that included, and we've already seen return on investment within the first month. So it's already positive from an ROI side on the small ones. The bigger ones that we're doing Up and Vanish this month. So, those, and it's funny, now we're outside, I guess the Whole Food Moms like murder podcast. So we're doing like bigger murder podcast type scenarios. Those ones are yet to be seen. That one I wouldn't expect an immediate return, but all channels get more efficient when you do that. So I know that our Facebook retargeting is probably going to become even more efficient in that as well. So even if we can't capture it right away or be able to do that, and I know it will probably lift Amazon. So in a month, we'll probably have much more, a better data set to speak to on that.
I was going to say, I don't feel like your product can help with the murder stuff, though. I feel like that's a little outside of your spectrum. Right?
And this will be one of the first times that we go outside of like Dr. Mom's an obvious like correlation of this is like a product listening to that podcast that you should know about. This is a little bit more of, this is the demographic we know is buying our product now. We know that they're listening to this podcast. Will this correlate even though they're not thinking about skin repair when they go to listen to this podcast? So I don't know. It's a much bigger bet for us to see if we can translate that. But it's a more scalable one.
Right. You're balancing niche for reach. Yeah.
I'm not a Whole Foods mom, and I love me some murder podcasts. And then Philip and Bill had some comments on that. If you guys want to jump in and share, feel free to on the podcasting front. And then Philip also had another question.
Yeah, no, podcasting. One of the downsides we've seen from an editorial perspective is it can just take so long to happen. There's pitching the podcast, they do the interview, you've got to slot them in. A lot of these things are not published daily. That said, the paid efforts behind it, if it's the right podcast and the right people, especially with GovX, which is in the world that I play in, I could imagine that there's a whole demographic of people that if they're listening to the right one, it could explode. And, we've heard stories. There's SDSI members that are also using like the Tim Ferriss podcast and places like that. And I know firsthand from those guys, it's gone through the roof. The big battle is editorially always, it's like, we could land an interview with a podcaster today and it might not be published for another month. And that's the downside of what we do. But the paid stuff, it's insane. It's really great. Good on you.
Yeah, our success with podcasting is in consistently sponsoring the right audience, and then as well as part of the package, making sure that we're getting interview podcasts with that. And we did one with a core consumer market with a core partner of ours, and it's been a long live. I think I did it 2 years ago. And I think we've gotten something like 250,000 listens on it within our core audience. It would turn out to be about an hour and a half long commercial for us talking about our brand. And it's just been one of the most powerful things we've ever done. And it really has been, if you can find that right relationship, even if it takes a little bit of time to set up, it really has been gold, because it's driven tremendous sales growth through all channels, to the point where our retailers come to us and really encourage more of it, just because it's driven sell-through to such an extent.
I mean, in Kelly's business, I can just imagine, with a consumer base as large as it is, all who serve and protect, and the products, this is like a gold mine of anecdotes and endorsements, it would seem like, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, for sure. I mean, so to just like our journey was, we started back in TV a year ago. And so I think we are also comparing the return that we're getting from television, network streaming, and there's some fatigue year over year. I think that there's to be expected, but even still, it's sort of the biggest lever that we have. And because of that, anecdotally, I thought, the next logical step is podcasts. And so we've tried a handful. And I think it's just a cadence. I think it's consumption. I think not everything is done in real time in the same way that, TV is, and, sort of our retargeting and other efforts. There's a little bit more of an immediate return that we see, and that's sort of what we focused on. But I believe in the idea of podcast in the same way that we're building a brand over a longer term, because I think that people download podcasts, they consume them in their own time. Not everything is done, when it lands, right? Like sometimes there might be weeks, or I know that I've gone to podcasts that I'm like, oh, this is 2 years ago. I just discovered Serial or whatever, So I think it's, there's a little bit of that just from a cadence standpoint, but I think it's amazing to hear that there's a lot more success stories, because maybe again, these are more grassroots, and we sort of build on the longer tail with podcasting for that and find the right ones. I mean, I think we just did one. I think we're setting up a few with Barstool, which is very niche it's not for everyone. It's not the mom's blog, but it's definitely something that speaks to our demo a little bit better. But again, it's a balance of like testing at the right scale to see how it works versus like putting all of that, that investment and then sort of not really getting the return even in a 3-month period. So I mean, kudos to you guys, because that's something that we've been sort of trying to help and really want it to work, because it sort of seems like it should from a theoretical standpoint. It's just not as quick a return for us.
Hey, Roger, I have a question for you, not to put you on the spot, but in following up on Justin's comment around, influencers kind of serve different purposes. One, whether it's direct return on investment versus brand building. When you're working with brands, do you have any insights or experience to share about helping them identify the best influencers to work with? I mean, sometimes, from our experience working with you, it's not always the influencer with the highest followings. It's the better fit for the brand to get the better return. Do you have anything to share there?
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions for Justin, is around, how they're identifying influencers and things. So from from my experience working with some of the brand marketers, and this is at much larger brands, you know, when they're looking at different athletes, because that's really where our focus is. Obviously, performance on the field is important, but then, you know, fit with the audience is key as well. So we have a bunch of audience demographics of, you know, on social, everything is measurable. So we can tell them, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo's audience comes from all over the globe, right? He doesn't have 10% of his audience in any one country, whereas Justin Bieber's audience is 25% in the US. I just did a story on those two. That's why I know those particular stats, but right. So you can figure out, you know, who your audience is from a demographics, from a, you know, location perspective, from a household income. A lot of these stats that the more that I learn about, the more that I want to walk away from social media, just because there's so much data there about who the audience is for every different influencer. And it's not just athletes, right? We can track anybody that has a social account that is public. And the great thing is, like, you can find if a particular brand really wants female demographic, I think you said between 25 to 45, you know, that has a household income over X number of dollars, right? We can put a filter on that and give you a full list of athletes or potential influencers. And then you can say, all right, these are the sports that I'm interested in, or, you know, you can really filter it to be very specific. And then what we like to encourage is really focus on more of the engagement rate on social rather than a larger following necessarily, because, you know, followers are great for that reach. It's the reach versus niche. I forget who said that earlier, but that was, you know, the right way to think about it. Yeah, Kelly, where it's, you know, you may be reaching those 500 or 1,000 followers from each of those amateur athletes, but all of their friends are seeing them. And if they're looking up to that particular rider or, you know, athletes, then they're like, oh, they're working with Active Skin Repair. I want some of that too. How do I get sponsored by that brand? Mom, we should go and buy this, you know, that type of thing, where it's, you know, creating that demand even on a micro scale that then can expands and help grow the business. And it adds to that cool factor for sure.
It's interesting, Roger. It's not just small brands, you know, for all the listeners here. I mean, we had a little situation with a small golf company just before the Masters, and I was really struck with how quickly you guys could respond and help that brand make for a much more effective post from their athletes. Of course, just prior to the Masters is big time for the golf, right? So dealing with the way you arrange the hierarchy of athletes and quantify it is really a fascinating thing. And I really believe in it, and it applies to so many companies.
And I think that engagement comment was a great one, because we very much look, I mean, and you can tell the ones that perform for us don't have huge followings. They have amazing engagement. And that is absolutely the metric that seems to matter. On identification, I think one of the, Trady and I had a call, and I introduced him to the coordinator who handles ours, because I said, I'm going to be honest with you. If you really want to talk to the person who's doing all the work, you know, this is her. And and I just get to, you know, the luckiness of taking credit for it. I think having somebody who understands who they're going at, like, can relate to that person and understands that lifestyle is very important. Now, I was at least self-aware enough to know that I don't. I honestly don't even have an Instagram account that I use. So I knew I needed to put somebody in that place who understood that very well, understood that consumer, would be able to understand kind of all the nuances of reaching out and what was going to connect with these people. And we're again kind of at that infancy of a very kind of bootstrap where that would make sense, where we're not looking for, you know, it was just much more of a personalized, we're part of this company, would love to kind of chat with you and tell you more about the product. The other thing that we learned too, especially from the affiliate world, is there's a lot of women, a lot of just people overall getting into in the micro influencer realm, looking at affiliate marketing as another way to make money, right? Rightfully so. And right now, I think that is an amazing opportunity as a brand from a cost efficiency side. It's probably one of the biggest opportunities out there now. So what happened was, once we found a couple good natural product influencers who are part of the affiliate, other affiliate people know that they are too. So they knew they're all following each other, right? And so all of a sudden it kind of opened up that world for us. So just getting a couple of the key ones that already have that credibility, the smaller ones will follow because they know, oh, if this person's talking about it, it must be paying well. It must be something worth talking about.
And in terms of vetting, you mentioned that you were doing something with the heartbeat. In terms of vetting those, whoever they may be, I assume it's not a one size fits all in terms of commission and stuff like that structure. So how do you determine the higher paid people from the lower paid people, if that is the case?
Yeah, it's actually it's a really intuitive kind of platform that you go into. You plug in what do you want to spend your budget in. So again, we just did a $2,000 one. I think we got 25 influencers from that. That there is no commission on that either. So that just takes care of them posting. And you put in what you're looking. Are you looking for reach? Are you looking for engagement? So you put in some of the things that you're looking for, and then you put in about what the campaign is, about what your product is, and people apply, and then you'll get hundreds and hundreds of applications. You pick that, and as you pick them, it will show how your budget's adjusting. So if I pick somebody who has 30,000 followers, it's going to take X amount. If I take somebody who has 200,000, it's going to take X amount away from that budget. And they have multiple different metrics to look at from that. The backend system kind of does that all for you.
But then are you having calls with those 25 people, or are you just sending them the deck at that point? I mean,
we are not. I'm not doing calls with those people. Everything's kind of within the platform, and then we do. You don't have to, but we send them a product, so that's also a compelling reason for them to be doing this. They get free products, so we send them free products so that their pictures are authentic, where they're actually using product. Through that platform, I'm conveying everything in that deck though. I'm saying these are the key points you need to touch on within your post. And especially the better ones really do figure out ways that it doesn't sound like a marketing spiel, but it's an authentic way of kind of communicating what those key points are.
Wow. Justin, so interesting. I'm just trying to think about some compelling pieces here. One is that it's small. Two is that it's a cash efficient. Three, it's data driven, really focused, and no brick and mortar. Those are interesting things, and kind of the definition, I think, of a contemporary digitally native brand that we're seeing certainly in our accelerators now. It's a fascinating insight.
And one thing for us, and to kind of even go back to why we're optimistic about podcasts, but it's yet to be seen. Our brand and our product really deserve the long form kind of explanation. You can't, we failed miserably when I've done it on Outside Magazine or website and a bunch of different websites where we'll run banner ads and they're terrible. Like nobody gets excited to see a banner ad about a first aid product and click on it. When an influencer has a few minutes to explain, like, oh my God, this is miracle. Like, this is amazing. I use this on my kid and it healed them, or I use this on every time I come out of the store. All these things, when the influencer does that, it's such a different connection that it makes to that customer. And for the podcasting, we were not interested if somebody didn't want to sample the product, use the product, and feel fully on board with endorsing it in their own personal experience, we said we're not interested. If they were just going to read an ad at the front of a podcast, it was a hard no. So you had to give a personal endorsement. So that was a requirement for us on podcasting.
Did you have people that weren't doing that? I mean, was that like a thing that you found, or I mean, were most people sort of interested in sort of evangelizing it based on their experience?
With this month, when we spread much deeper into a lot more podcasts, we used an agency, and yes, people would turn it down. They would say it's not something that we don't do personal endorsements. We don't want to, you know, this is a medical product. We don't want to do medical products. We're not looking to endorse a medical product. And I totally get that too. So yeah, absolutely. People would turn it down. So.
Yeah. For what it's worth, your social's working well. After I was exploring your where your blog was, I just got hit with the BLDG Active social Facebook ad. So it looks good.
The targeting works.
Hey, Justin, I have a question. Earlier in your presentation, you referenced kind of giving influencers liberty to use their own voice when talking about your brand to make it authentic. And Kimberly, if you have something to add on this, feel free to jump in. But do you have any tips on that perspective, like things that have worked or not, or things to limitations to letting people kind of use their own perspective?
Yeah, well, and we're unique because we're FDA regulated too. So so that also posed an amazing challenge too. What we can say on our box, and we have to, there's a lot of requirements. You have to stay within label and all these things. So some of the guidelines that I would give them is like, please don't say this kills COVID. That's not something that we want out on social, you know, even if it does, and it does, we really don't want that liability out there, right? So I explained to them what we need to kind of stay within, and you don't want to ever, especially with a medical product, say, you know, you don't need to go to the hospital with, you know, that type of thing. So we give some parameters of like, please stay within these boundaries from not making egregious claims. And then we talk about, we don't want to be niched into anytime you get like a bad cut to use this, or we're never going to sell enough product. It just won't be. This product, the amazing thing on this is it's an everyday product. And so we really try and hone them in on find everyday issues, sunburn, bug bites, rashes, chafing, things that are, you know, that you need a product for. Just a facial mist coming out of the gym, right? For bacterial stuff. Or after you take, maskne was a big one. So after you take off your mask, we had all these women spraying their face in their car saying, this is what I use now to combat maskne. Every time I take off my mask, I spray my face. So we try and give them some examples of what's worked for other influencers and really try and give them areas that we think are going to move the needle from us, from creating a behavior of everyday usage, not I'm going to put this in my medicine cabinet and wait until something really bad happens. So we try and prime that consumer behavior through the influencers so that this becomes a staple product in their everyday life, not a last resort product. So that's from that end. One thing that we also do too, which I forgot to say, is we built like really nice boxes, branded boxes, and put in some market. So when we send samples to the influencers, it's not just coming in a brown UPS box. It comes in a really nice branded box as well. So it has kind of that more of a experience side in receiving the product, along with some marketing materials of like everyday uses that you could use it on. And yeah, so that helps.
That's for influencers, not consumers, correct?
That is for influencers only. Yeah, we don't want the added expense on consumer stuff.
Right. Great. Well, if anybody has any, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I'm just going to tell everybody, you know, that out here, I'm out in the dirt in Cabo in the ocean. By the way, it's glassy and about 6 foot now. But I was going to say that you know, I had a kind of a nasty little accident out here, and the only first aid product I had was BLDG, and it converted me from being a last resort user to a first resort. I think I have a gallon of it on the house here, and we use it from everything from scorpion bites to sunburn to Toyota crashes. It's really an amazing product.
Great.
Don't post that. The FDA might And it doesn't heal murder either. I think you have to put that in.
If there aren't any more questions, we'll jump off and give everybody a little bit of time back in their day. I will send out an invite or a follow-up with everybody's email addresses as well. So if you want to connect with Justin or anybody else on the call, you can do so. And just
Nick, before you sign off, I think I'm sensing the collective judgment, Justin, that you are really a brilliant marketer. I really admire what you have done. Nick and Rennie and I went to a Roth Capital event about 2 years ago, and there was a panel of women there talking about their young moms, talking about their purchasing experience. It's the first time even the light went on dimly for me that there was this amazing network out there. Actually, all the way around the world, by the way, there's 189 million young mothers in China that are just as concerned. So it's really an amazing job, Justin. We really admire you, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's super cool.
Fun.
Well, it's my pleasure.
sounds
Mickey.
good.